Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath.
The podcast where we discuss relationships in movies and our relationships with them.
I'm Polina Grenbaum.
And I'm Diana Rojek-Sconard.
Hello, Diana.
Hey, Polina.
How are you doing today?
Well, I just have to say that I'm just happy to be here, and I hope I can help the podcast.
I think it's brought to us from, I just forgot all of them. See, I'd be a terrible baseball player.
Oh.
I have to stay in the minor leagues forever. So today we're talking about Bull Durham, 1988.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my pick. Mm-hmm. And has Kevin Costner, Susan Sarandon, and Tim Robbins.
Correct.
And some others.
Yep.
Yes, many others. Because it's, about baseball and there's other people on the team, coaches and things.
How interesting would it be if it would have been like a one set piece, 3 people baseball movie?
And they're just, yeah. And they have to basically play, I'm assuming they would just all be in Susan Sarandon's bedroom and then they...
Baseball of the mind?
Yeah. And they would just have to talk about baseball they can't really hit things because there's just a lot of there was a lot of ceramics. There was a lot of ceramics in her house.
Way too many candles for my comfort.
So many candles. Oh, it was terrifying. There was a lot of anxiety watching this. Yeah.
Fire hazard potential.
Oh my God. I know.
Your pick. I want to hear more.
Yeah. So let me let's do the little short bit. Okay. I can't even argue with this one, which is like I think this is the first one we can't argue with in months.
Watch me.
A fan who has an affair with one minor league baseball player each season meets an up-and-coming pitcher and the experienced catcher assigned to him. I dare you to come up with something to argue with.
Well, first of all, where is it from?
It is from, thank you, IMDb.
Okay.
It doesn't have a person, but whoever writes little short things for IMDb.
I think they're submitted, but I would I take exception with the word affair. I'm not really sure if that's the right word for it, but I might be taking it the wrong way because I hear affair, I think someone breaking into a committed relationship. Whereas
I think you're right.
They're all free agents, Polina.
They are. Ooh, I like your baseball terminology. I can't wait to talk to you about this.
It's going to stop after this.
Oh, okay. Damn. Well, you're the one who saw a baseball game yesterday.
Foul ball, Polina. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is my pick. I'm going to say that...
Just totally derailed us.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
How about this? We'll just spend the rest of the time just talking about everything we know about baseball.
I'm going to request a short stop from you, Polina.
Oh.
God, I hate myself so much right now. Tell me about you and Bull Durham.
For our listeners, if you're ready for an hour of nothing but baseball puns, you've come to the right place. So I saw this. So 1988. I think I may have seen this in a theater.
You may have seen this
in a theater. And
right. Were you on the East Coast or the West Coast?
I was on the East Coast. And I suspect I saw this with my mother or my mother and father.
Okay.
I should have probably called them to ask them this they remembered.
Your mother or your mother and father. No chance it was just your father.
I don't think I just saw this movie with my father.
All right, let's throw another person in there and look at all the other combinations.
Okay, I'm gonna go through all my friends, and no, I definitely feel like I saw this with my parents, and I actually had a funny memory of I think it was like Sunday nights. Roger and Ebert were on TV, and they did like a 30-minute thing every week.
Do you mean Siskel and Ebert?
I mean Siskel and Ebert.
Okay.
See, this is why I need you. I was there and you were not. So we watched Siskel and Ebert as a family, listened to their picks. And
did you trust them and saw this movie based off of their recommendation?
Most likely.
Wow.
Or just like everyone saw this movie a lot of people saw this movie in 1988.
Raise your hands if you haven't seen this movie in 1988. My hand.
Well, I mean, like if you were, okay, I'm not going to say everyone.
Raise your hand if you were not alive in 1988.
Yeah.
My hand is down.
I think if you were around and you were of an age,
if you
probably saw it.
And you saw a movie
and you were
Bull
able
Durham.
to see a movie that was rated PG-13 or R. I hope it's rated R. I really, really do.
No, I was about to say, honey, there's no way this is not rated R.
Yeah.
The part where he tries to get thrown out of the game
Yes.
That's a rated R.
That's
flick.
a good point. There's no, yeah. Anyway.
Which, a tiny note, I had never seen this movie before.
Okay.
But I had seen tiny pieces of it as I was flipping through the channels, edited, because I remember the part where Annie, right?
Yep.
Annie, Susan Sarandon's character, was talking about how they were on a hot streak and how it affected her life.
Yeah.
And I also, at the time I watched this for the first time for the podcast, I thought I remember seeing the scene where Kevin Costner decides to start swearing up a streak to get thrown out of a game. And then I realized, no, I was misremembering it when I was watching Major League with my cousins when I was a little girl. And there was a scene where my Uncle Brian knew a bunch of swearing was about to start. So he ran over and he muted it really quick. And it wasn't until years later I actually saw that scene for realsies. And I'm like, good call, Uncle Brian.
Good call.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wrote down, these are my notes. All of the movies. Okay. Bull Durham, 1988. Major League, A League of Their Own, Little Big League. Those are my baseball movies. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
There was, oh God, and I'm like, this one I'm totally spaced, but there was, For the Love of the Game. And for some
Costner?
reason, another Costner baseball movie.
We played that game too. Field of Dreams, Tin Cup, there's a Draft Day, all the Costner sport movies.
Husband told me recently
Waterworld.
that they...
Water sports.
Was there a base? I never saw Waterworld. He was on a talk show recently, and they were asking him like why he was on all these baseball movies around this time, because they were all like within 4 years of each other. And he's like, "Yeah, they were just all good movies. I didn't plan it." But for the Love of the Game, which is as I recall, was not a good movie. But I remember there was this one bit where he's pitching, and he also plays an aging pitcher.
Yep.
In For the Love of the Game.
Yeah,
and but in the majors, and when he gets on the stage, or not on the stage, on the mound, and it was like the box. No, that's the batter box. He says, "Clear the mechanism."
You mentioned this.
And I, for some reason, even though I know for a fact this was not going to happen, I kept waiting for him to do that, because it's like one of my favorite bits of any sports movie.
Okay.
Is when he says, "Clear the mechanism," and then all the crowd noise goes away.
Interesting, because I was waiting for him to do a terrible British accent.
For?
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh, so sorry. No idea.
No, if you're waiting for Kevin Costner to do something in a movie that was actually in a different movie.
This is not the movie for you.
Wait, well, no, unless it is the movie.
Unless you've forgotten what Bull Durham is about, and you do the thing where you're waiting for somebody to do something from Bull Durham.
Well, if you're waiting for him to pitch, not this movie. He's the catcher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw
Clear mechanism, Polina.
I'm clearing the mechanism. I saw this, and I remember it making a big impression on me, and then it was on TV a lot, a couple years later, and it was definitely confirm. A free, because that's when you saw it, or you said you saw parts.
Flipping through, Bull Durham was on, edited.
Yeah.
I swear, well, if it was on TV, then it was edited, because we didn't have the fancy channels.
Yeah, we didn't have cable a lot either, but it was definitely on. And then when we got cable, I remember it was on, and it was the free HBO free preview weekend.
That was your version. I think mine was like on the TBS's or like the USA, maybe. I'm not positive. And
actually, I'm wondering if other times that I'd seen this movie, I'd also seen it edited, because I have to say, watching this movie was fun and cringy.
Were there parts you didn't remember?
Oh, first off, one, I don't actually remember how much baseball was in this movie.
This baseball movie, Bull Durham.
I just kind of thought it was like a small amount of baseball, but there was like a lot of baseball being played.
There were some really long scenes involving like him talking to himself.
Yes.
Very much enjoyable.
Very. I actually think I enjoyed the baseball parts of this movie. I was not, my family was was almost an anti-sports family.
I was about to say, was your family anti-baseball?
We were just generally kind of anti-sports.
Polina, I am not anti-sport. I am sport neutral.
Yeah, we were not, I don't think.
I don't care.
Yeah, see, my family, I think we were kind of one of those snobby, like most sports are, like we just had a lot of judgment about sports. Oddly though, I remember watching basketball. My father trying to explain physics to me while watching basketball. So we definitely watched some sports, but
well, that's good that he was using like kind of real world examples to bring in the kiddos.
Yeah.
But
so I don't know if we ever like watched an entire Major League Baseball
I don't
game.
Well, as someone who goes to a Major League sports game every year, I can tell you I don't know if I've seen a full Major League sports game.
Oh, that's true, because you guys do the thing where you leave, which I find.
Well, everyone does the thing where they leave, Polina, but
I don't. We're taping this in Pac Bell Park right now.
We're coming to you live.
Live. Like I went to a baseball game like 3 months ago, and I'm still here.
She found a loophole in her ticket where they still have to give her nachos.
Yep. I've been surviving on nachos.
I mean, that's not. You're surviving, but are you living?
I'm not living.
You're not living.
No.
Well, okay,
I feel kind of gross.
As Polina alluded
my
to,
sweat smells terrible.
We have this thing, and we had this thing in my family. I don't live with that family anymore. I got married and started my own family with husband and dog. And typically, what would happen is that we would go with back when you could still bring a hard back cooler with our foods, our snacks, our home food, which of course was never as good as what everyone else had. How come we don't get that food? The answer is it's expensive.
Yeah.
Dad knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah. Now I'm like, I have such respect for, all those things make sense to me that I used to feel like we're weirdos.
When we're spending our own money.
Yeah, exactly.
Our
I'm like,
money.
Yeah, you bring your own.
In fact, when I watched this woman walk with 3 ice cream cones, and I'm just like, I'm willing to wager that's about $37. $37 is not divisible by 3, but somehow she just spent $37 on 3 ice cream cones right there.
I feel like every time I go to the concession, it costs about $37 if I'm like lucky. There's some weird number. I'm getting water, $37.
Yeah, parking was expensive. But what we typically would do when we were younger is that we would go, and then around the 7th inning, we would leave.
And you would see the A's, I'm going to say.
Oh, yes, we saw the A's up in this area because they were there. And it just occurred to me, like, I'm not particularly attached to the A's per se, like the team.
Yeah.
I was cracking Moneyball jokes last night when we went to the game. Actually,
as you do.
I made a Brad Pitt comment, and Ryan's like, "Oh yeah, Moneyball," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did. Yes, I totally meant to make that reference. I wasn't just cracking some random joke." And so we would leave early, and then we would listen to the game on the way home. We don't like traffic, Polina.
I know. I see. It's funny because this is what we were talking about earlier too. It's like, I'm not a huge baseball. So when I decided to create my family, not really thinking things through, I actually got together with someone who is a sports fan and likes baseball. A lot. He likes baseball, soccer. He actually likes a lot of different sports, including like figure skating. So, he's equal opportunity.
So that's interesting, though, because to me, that's, sports, there's like an objective, more runs than the other. Whereas, with figure skating, there's all of this, judging that has to do with a panel, as opposed to, it's always there's rich tapestry of sport versus sport possibilities. There's
a lot that isn't subjective.
Allow me.
There's a lot of objective scoring, but I won't get into that.
Well, allow me. We're not talking about the cutting edge right now. We are talking about Bull Durham.
I'm sorry. Jeez, I just get all the sports movies confused.
Yeah.
All right. So now baseball is more a part of my life. In fact, I'm like, I didn't realize that you could use the TV for things that don't involve like, large green expanses of fields with sticks and balls. But but it's the Giants. It's the Giants.
You're a Giants
fan. Yeah. So this may be the last. The A's and the Giants rivalry may come up today.
I don't care. So
yeah, that's actually I don't really either.
No.
So that won't. And you're not a Dodgers fan. That would be insane.
No, I inherited the A's with like my, my sister's bike and a lot of her sweatshirts.
I feel like sports are like that. Like sports teams are like that.
Yeah. Well, my dad's a Packers fan, and I don't get it. It's actually. I've heard a lot of podcasters talk about how sports are just a bonding agent.
Yeah, I can see that actually. Cool. I think that's actually cool. I do love that whenever we go somewhere, like it's soccer especially, like whenever you soccer and football, when you can talk to someone and say like, and baseball, that you can like strike up a conversation with a stranger.
Oh yeah,
right. Like
that totally makes sense.
It's kind of it's like a gateway.
Okay.
A bridge, if you will.
So gateway me your thoughts on this movie as you watched it.
As now, or when I watched it then.
Well, just like you may have watched it, you weren't all that attached to sports. What is it that made you say this movie now? So,
one, I think actually I heard Susan Sarandon talk about some of the projects she's working on around women's roles in equality in movies, and in filmmaking, and so I've actually had this movie on my list for a long time, and I think when I saw it then, I think that the reason that it's one of those movies I think about a lot. One, I think this may have been the movie that made me kind of have a little crush on Tim Collins. Oh my God, Tim Robbins.
Okay.
What the hell? Where did Collins come from?
Did you want a Tom Collins?
I kind of do. I think that's what it is.
Okay. Did you like Clifton Collins Jr. from Westworld? Did you like Clifford the Big Red Dog?
All those.
You want to go hang out with my dog?
I kind of do, actually.
It's always about
Can
dogs.
We go there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I obviously don't want to talk about this movie because you keep forcing me back. But
No.
I will
Robbins.
say, and Kevin Costner was at the time he's like sort of a heartthrob, and considered a heartthrob, and I never really got it and then I saw this and like. Even watching it again, I was like, he's really hot. In this particular movie, which I don't usually find Kevin Costner, I find him kind of bland and dull.
Oh, I love bland and dull.
I know. So you were happy.
Safe and well, he was a very angry man, so he wasn't that bland and dull.
He really wasn't very bland. He was like much angrier than I remember. But I guess like to me, I think really this movie to me is about Susan Sarandon.
Okay.
And my memories of this movie are all about Susan Sarandon. And I was, as I said, like around 15, maybe getting to 16. And I think this is one of the few movies I saw where like a woman had sexual agency and knew what she wanted and was able to get it for herself without a lot of judgment. Like everyone seemed to sort of accept her role.
Right.
Like and I just want to say like the aesthetics of her the aesthetics of kind of the things that she was into. So there's, there's kind of a lot of sort of 50s, early 50s references. There's, sort of in her clothes and in her demeanor. And then also just like, the stuff in her house was sort of like cool thrift store things. And as you can see, I like little objects, so I tend to sort of we're in my living room with hers. I haven't quite finished unpacking everything, but there's a bunch of little objects on surfaces.
So there's more objects to come then.
There might be.
If you're unpacking.
I'm trying to be better this time.
Would you credit Susan Sarandon's character as your object gathering person?
No. And in fact, I found her apartment or her house like quite oppressive. But yeah, I think I had this idea, and my family is sort of collectors of objects. So like not of collections, but of just like my mother is kind of a magpie and likes little, just little bits and bobs. And so do I. And she's a very visual person. And I think like seeing this with my mom too, it was sort of a certain, like, I don't remember really feeling embarrassed, and I could be totally wrong. Like, maybe I remember a few pieces, but I felt like, oh yeah, I was feeling this I was thinking about sex a lot. Really, I was of that age, but like, I think it still felt very much like a thing that, happens to you and you're having, okay. I started having sex ed in the 80s, right? Sex ed in the mid 80s.
I don't think they invented it yet.
No, it was, they had to, that's why the AIDS, that's why AIDS went down, is because of sex ed in the 80s.
That's propaganda, Polina. I mean, educating people, educating the masses.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Because basically they were like, this will kill you, which was like really useful. Obviously, it worked as a public, health campaign.
You mean fear?
Yeah, but it's also frustrating. But I have to say, it was actually pretty good. They taught you about sex. Like, it existed. They weren't like, you're never going to have this. They were like, use a condom.
All right. I'm sorry. Can you spell that word sex?
It's got an S, as in Sam.
Okay.
E is in ecstasy.
Okay. All right, hold on.
X is in xylophone.
It's too many words. Okay.
So...
you were saying AIDS epidemic.
So I guess, like, to me, this whole and but then, it was the 80s came after the 70s, which was a time when people seemed to really enjoy sex.
Slow down.
And I know, it was crazy.
Yep.
And so to me, like, having somebody who really, you've seen some of my other, you've followed some of my other picks, like, who really was set on enjoying it, but in her own, in her own way and by her own rules, was, I think, really, sort of movies that made me think, how do I want to be in the world?
It's amazing.
This was one of them.
What's kind of amazing is that, the part that you picked out, a woman who is sexually educated and also familiar with what she wants, in addition to the fact that, didn't she say her first love was baseball?
Yeah, well, she said, she has this long monologue in the beginning about how she's tried every religion.
Yeah.
And she's tried every religion, and like the only one that really stuck was baseball.
What's amazing is that she has managed to combine the two, in that, she's got baseball, and I don't know if she's made it her personal mission, but she has made it a point to kind of take a player under her wing and has used her relationships with them to catapult their careers.
Exactly. To sort of refine their arm.
Well, in this instance, he's a pitcher, so sure. But I imagine she doesn't stick to just the pitchers.
No, maybe she picks a first baseman every now and again.
This is what I liked. And I'm not going to instantly translate the ages of the actors to what the characters were supposed to be, but I think it translates very well. Susan Sarandon, she's 42 when they filmed this, or when the movie came out.
I'm glad you actually did some research.
Well, you mean read the trivia?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was 42, yes. Kevin Costner was 33, and Tim Robbins was 30. So you have this woman who is, older, worldly, just experienced, and just what's funny is that, and again, when I read that, Kevin Costner, the aging, player. And I'm just like, how dare you call a 33-year-old age? Well, everyone's aging, but shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Tim Robbins, the 30-year-old. But I think in reality, like, if you look at the way, because watching
Tim
baseball,
Robbins, I think, is supposed to be younger, right? He's supposed to be under 30. He's supposed to be like...
Well, if you're a minor league player, I would imagine he was 22.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of
thinking. If we're talking about, like, a minor league player now, because, again, I know baseball now, and I am familiar with baseball then, and watching the fact that, it's like, oh my God, that was like a 96, and, that kind of thing. And I'm just like, yep. We see that all the time now.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, some of the things that we don't even think about.
Sports are so jacked up now.
I was thinking about that. I was like 95. I think like one of my godson's friends like hit a 95 per hour fastball once.
Well, here's what I think can help. If this was made in 88, I think 88 is about what's amazing in baseball.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's doing a 96, woo!
Sure.
There. Yeah. That was my version of it.
So it's funny rewatching it because it was at once fun and yet like I think the other idea that I had of her was also because she was kind of also an intellectual, but I found the intellectual like part of it really cringy when rewatching because I think it was like it's sort of were signs, it's signifiers of intelligence. Like, I mean, I had just really discovered, like many 15-year-olds, Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. Mm-hmm. So to me, this was,
Leaves of Grass, My Ass.
Yeah. Like I love, and I still love it. Like I still read it. It's by my bed, whatever. But like, but wait, I just want to clarify. It is not, it's not by my bed because I like to read it to Sean when he needs to work on his fastball. Sorry,
you're way too amused by that.
Oh my God, that was good. It's just there because I don't know. I like to read poetry before I go to sleep.
Because when one reads a book and then one falls asleep with the book falls by the table. Yeah. You put it back up on the table. On the table. There is a book by your bed.
Yeah. I like to read poetry before I go to sleep.
I like to read, period.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway.
Why are you explaining yourself, Polina? You read.
I just realized that just saying that sounds different. Sounds different in the context of this movie. But
okay, point
that I wasn't like, oh my God, this is why I keep this book by my bed. Now I know. It was
this is why you have knickknacks. Yeah. This is why you have a crush on Tim Robbins.
This is why I wear really wide belts and I always dress like I don't know, like somebody from the 50s. Doris Day. This is why I always dress like Doris Day.
This is why you have improved the careers of 14 major league players.
God, I never made this connection before, but it all goes back to this movie. No, so just have to clarify. Yeah. But anyway, I found that part really cringy. Like some of them it felt very much like, well, I guess like high school me who was like, yeah, I'm totally intellectual.
Well, what's interesting is that you can look at it then, I'm an intellectual. You can look at it now, oh, that's right. They're putting markers in there to make them seem smart. Mm-hmm. First time watcher, I just thought it was an interesting banter. And what I also thought that was kind of funnier is that she said that she also is a professor.
Yeah, she teaches, but I think, she teaches like creative writing. She teaches English literature. Yeah.
So I just thought,
he's like, do you really have a job? Which I thought was great. It was like, yeah, I keep waiting for them to get to that point.
Well, also, it was funny because I was just thinking like, yeah, I teach English literature, you jackass. Yeah. Why do you think I'm always quoting stuff? All of this literature?
Yeah.
Dumbass.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think you're right.
So it worked for me.
And I don't want to, totally like, I think if I didn't have that, I think you're right. Because if I didn't have that, I'm like, if I didn't have that memory and it didn't sort of have that cringy thing, like, I think I would have been like, this is really great because basically she says like, she treats these players. She has this affair, she basically picks one every year and she treats them kind of like their students, her students. And she even says a thing of like, she does sort of mention that like this could seem sad in her opening monologue because she basically says, I teach them about literature and like art and life. And so they leave after a season and I'm left with, so that stays with them forever. But for me, it stays with them. But for me, it's just like a fleeting moment. And she says, that may seem like I don't get a lot out of it. Or they get more than I do. I don't remember the exact quote, but that's not really true. And I thought it was interesting that they introduced that in the beginning. But I think you're right. Like thinking back on it, and I feel like if I rewatched it, because I only watched this one once, I think it wouldn't feel as sort of cringy and embarrassing, but it feels cringy and embarrassing because I think at the time thought she was like so esoteric and strange. And maybe now I'm like, oh yeah, like
Well,
I can enjoy the fact that someone's reading Walt Whitman
Yeah.
in a movie, which, I mean,
and you're now older than her character was theoretically.
yeah,
there,
or
so
even she was when,
Yeah,
when it
exactly.
filmed.
So, it's kind of easy to look back at that whole thing and just kind of, look at it from an older perspective.
Yeah, and just like thinking of yourself as a pretentious teenager.
Oh no, I was talking about
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon, not
Oh,
Polina.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about like, see, now you're looking at it with like the wisdom of just like, yeah, I also read literature, and you're not doing it as a means to just kind of make yourself seem more important, but at the same time, back then that you thought that that's what it was, so it's like a weird conflation.
Yeah, I mean, I was into that stuff, of course, but but yeah.
Well,
I think you're right.
I'm a clean slate, so
yeah. How was it for you?
Before I saw it, Ryan had looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I'm like, I don't want to know, and then I'm like, let me look at it. So
What was the Rotten Tomatoes score?
it's 97%.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I'm
that
like,
surprises me.
Well, what made me pause is I'm now worried about the expectations, because I've heard many wonderful things about this movie. I just knew very little about it.
Yeah.
I knew about Susan Sarandon and what she did, and Kevin Costner, and the fact that he's the the older player, and so when I did it, I was worried that the 97% and all the hype would make it to be more amazing. And I'm like, clear the mechanism, Diana. Make sure that when you're watching this,
you get nothing out of this podcast.
It's
to teach you how to clear the mechanism.
Yeah. So I didn't even like clear it completely, and I did relax.
Oh, good.
And I'm just
you just got to watch
this
it without the kind of expectation,
without
around
the
it.
baggage.
Yeah, which I think is key.
The baggage. Yeah.
And
no, very enjoyable.
oh, good.
Of course, there were parts where it's just like, but there were certain little bits of it, like all the side characters. I did have
the entire coaching staff is like a delight. Like I have to say, I enjoyed the baseball. I think I said this earlier.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the baseball in this movie.
I was enjoying the certain parallels that make, a baseball movie just there, like certain songs that just come in. And then also a big fan of Major League, the movie, when I was, younger. So the fact that there was another baseball player with, trying to take the curse out of his bat or take the curse out of his glove. I know there's superstitions, and I think it's pretty funny, but I just wanted to say, you're no Pedro Serrano, okay? You take your voodoo and you get the hell out of this movie. But that's just me and the fact that I am team Pedro.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I have a story about that.
About Pedro Serrano?
No, about a bat. I went to see the San Jose Giants, which is the minor league feeder team for the Giants.
Okay.
And I went with my godkids and another family that we're close to, and one of the boys who I think may have been 11 or 12, huge baseball fan. When one of the players threw a home run, and he caught, it was like a big home run for the player.
Okay.
And he knew it. The kid knew it.
Like 247?
Like some big number. I don't even remember. Maybe it was some big number. And
was it the minor league world record?
I don't even know, to be honest. And now I think I probably shouldn't. Anyway, he caught the ball and he gave, so the player afterwards basically tried, and he was like an up and comer, then he actually joined the majors the next year, and he wanted that ball so badly, the player.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid Alex was like really also knew what this ball signified, unlike me, and really wanted. But it basically, the guy, he found him, tracked him down, found him, and he went and he said, "If you give me this ball, I will give you the bat." And the bat had a crack in it.
Okay.
Because he'd cracked the bat with this ball. And I will sign it, and I will give you a tour of the clubhouse.
Okay.
For this ball. That was a really nice story, and he was really lovely to Alex.
I think that's amazing because I think he knew that the ball would take up less storage space in his mementos. So
I was going to say than the bat.
Yeah.
And I
this bat's
think
cracked.
Alex
I don't want
still
this.
has the bat.
So
yeah. So
yeah.
how was your
No,
so you enjoyed it? Like
I really did.
I was actually worried because there was like also more sex than I remember, which is weird.
Okay,
that I don't remember that.
Well, I mean, if you're picking this as a movie for our podcast, Polina, it's not a bad thing. In fact, if anything, it enhances, the questions and the thing. Because if you saw Major League, there is a relationship there. But you know how sometimes they throw in a romantic relationship into a sports movie? Jerry Maguire. And they get the females in it. No, okay, I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen to the other episode. No, it was very enjoyable and good movie, good relationship.
Great lines. I mean, really good. Like it's
pretty good.
It moves.
I okay, really quick. I very much enjoyed the managers, like you said, the Robert Wuhl and the other manager. I can't remember his name. Apologies to him. But just they're cracked. Like there were some great
Trey Wilson.
Some of the lines. It's like, oh, I don't think he's breathing out of his third eye.
Yeah.
And just I'm like, damn, that was funny.
It was so good.
Just comes out of nowhere.
Also,
but not out of nowhere.
Also, I loved the Trey Wilson basically who plays a character called Joe Riggins, who is their coach, and he basically is told by the Kevin Costner character Crash. He is told, oh, they need someone to he's like, I've tried everything I can do with these kids, and he's like, oh, they need to be afraid of someone, and he's like, oh, and he thinks about it, and so you imagine like he's gonna it's gonna be difficult for him. But instead he's like, oh, okay, and then he thinks about it for a while, and then he delivers like the most he just says it in such a terrifying way. This long monologue, like a drill sergeant, and it's so classic because he just is like, clearly this is just what he's been waiting for. Like he's sort of gotten terrible advice, but this is actually his natural state. And it's just so funny. It's so funny. So there's a lot of great supporting cast.
I thought so. Okay, so here's my question for you.
Okay, what are you going to ask me?
Familiar question.
Obviously.
If we're talking about, I'm assuming Kevin Costner's character.
Yes.
Crash. And Annie, Susan Sarandon. When did they fall in love?
I think the movie kind of makes you think it's I'm my own person, Polina. It's when which is actually Janet Varney made me think about, which I never really thought about before.
Oh, I'm always thinking it that way.
Yeah, that when they make you, I don't know why. I
had a couple of caveats in that Janet Varney vein as well. Go ahead.
So was basically when he gives that monologue, about, in
the beginning,
I'm all about, slow, wet kisses that last, for 3 days. And
he also thought Oswald acted alone. So
yeah.
He says lots of things in that monologue, and you think about, of course you remember the slow, wet kisses.
No, I remember all of it. Actually, I was like, Oswald acted alone. And in fact, I was sitting there watching it with Sean, and the minute he it was about to start, he's like, here we go. And I was like, wait, doesn't he talk about Oswald? Yeah, okay, here we go. But I actually feel like Kevin Costner falls in love with her. I feel like he kind of falls in love with her on when he's watching her dance
the first time.
Oh
wow. That is early for both.
Yeah, but I also feel like actually I don't know, but no, I think actually she falls in love with him watching. I think she just falls in love with him watching him play.
Okay.
And watching him coach.
Yes, because he's a
so I can't really find a point, but I think when she falls in actual lust with him is when he gives that speech. So.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree with you on the falling in lust with that speech. That was,
it worked for me.
I don't know this speech, but I am on board for all of this because so much pop culture kind of permeates.
Oh yeah, and this is the one.
This is vaguely familiar because I imagine it's like been imitated, not directly.
Oh, yeah.
But indirectly. So I think I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was what was yours?
Oh, yeah. So, well, originally I'd written something down for her when she, fell in love with him. So she writes notes to the ball player. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So there's a part where her and Crash finally get together. It's after, what's his Nuke? His name is Nuke. Mr. What was it? His full name's Ed something Calvin Lelouch.
Yes,
his name's Nuke. His nickname is when he goes up to the big show, mm-hmm. the big leagues, whatever you want to call
the show.
Mr.
The
Show.
Majors.
Yeah. Okay. And I thought so. After Crash and Annie get together, he leaves her, and she receives a note. And in my head, it was she realizes that she's in love with him when she gets the note. But then I thought, I don't like that as much. And for some reason, there was something a little bit off about that. So I had to think about it some more. And of course, I remembered it while I was driving. And I begged Ryan to text me it because I didn't want to forget it again. I want to say that she falls in love with him when they're about to have sex. And he is able to take off her garters with no
I was actually,
no instruction whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
That's a man who knows what he's doing, and he knows what he's after, and he's doing it.
Ooh.
So
I like yours so much better than mine, because that was a great scene. In fact, that was one of those, I'm like, when I saw the Tim Robbins thing where so basically the history is that
throwing his clothes off,
she's trying to teach him. Well, she's trying to seduce him because he's decided not to have sex while they're on this winning streak.
Yes.
And
totally logical.
Yeah, totally logical. And so she's like, "Oh, you should learn how to basically take off my garter with one."
Like normal in the 80s?
Okay, so one almost always when one was not wearing one almost always wore hose when one was not certainly on the East Coast. One always wore hose. So whether or not they were garters or just full-on pantyhose is sort of, I mean, people definitely wore them.
Because I remember in Working Girl, she had the whole thing, but that was more like wearing in the bedroom situation.
People wore them, I think, on the regular and in the bedroom. But I mean, she was one of those women, though, and on the ball field, apparently. But I think women... I guess my point is that having bare legs and a mini skirt was even in the summer was, at least even then in the 80s, was still considered pretty, like you wouldn't, it was considered certainly unprofessional. Like you would not go to a wedding and have bare legs.
I mention it because you said she had a lot of like 50s.
Well, that's the other thing, yeah. So I don't really know. I mean, I was sort of like a weirdo. I wore tights but I think maybe...
No problem.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, I wasn't exactly asking for a history lesson, though.
Yeah, but I think, like, I guess my point is, like, that didn't seem like it was only, like, people had, like, women sort of had to keep their legs covered in some way, which is not true now. Like, you can go to an office with bare legs.
And I do.
And, I have.
Yes. Okay, so there's that question. I have
so he is very clumsy at it, and Crash is not.
He is not.
No, I like yours. Anyway, so what about Kevin Costner falling in love with her?
Well, I am of the belief...
Crash, I mean.
I am of the belief that when he is on the field, and there is this part where Nuke, Tim Robbins, I don't know what to call him. He has way too many names that I couldn't understand in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. He's listening to all of Annie's advice, and he is killing it. And so when there's a meeting on the mound, Crash asked him what's going on. And Annie said to do everything you tell me.
Yeah.
And that was Crash's moment.
It's basically, oh, wait. I've permeated her thinking, or
No, it was knowing that she trusted him enough to have him do all the right calls. It kind of like broke down his defenses to where it's just like, I'm doing this for, his thing. He's just like, well, I'm trying to do this for him too. She's just like, yeah. And she recognized that. And so he's just like, honey, I want you to wear this on the field. I want you to think about me when you're on the field. And when it comes down to it, do everything he says.
yeah.
And when he hears that point, he's just like, oh, ding, ding, ding.
Got it.
That was his moment.
I like that.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
what happens next with these crazy kids?
So I will say that the ending was a little bit like the middle ending, if that made any sense.
Yeah,
so
another one.
So
where,
they have their moment, they get together, it's really, really sweet. And then he leaves.
without even saying goodbye.
He wrote
Well, he wrote a note.
he wrote
but,
something. Yeah, but then he just like disappeared. And I that actually left me a little bit cold in that he left. He got terminated from his contract because with Nuke going up to the majors, his purpose is now pointless.
They basically they're like, oh, we want to get a younger catch so we can get them to be good enough.
Right. And so he gets another job and another thing, and he gets his home run record with no fanfare, no nothing.
Yeah.
And then
he's unknown.
Yeah, and then he just comes back again. And then it's just like, yeah, okay. And then that's it. And then they dance.
Yeah, what was it that left you kind of cold about it?
Well, as someone who was enjoying baseball, it was a fine movie, but it was somebody enjoying a romance. I'm just like, hey, it's kind of like the first time I saw The Shawshank Redemption. I'm like, I need more. I need more at the end of this movie. I'm not redempted enough. Yeah. So him's just like, all right, I'm here now. The end.
I know.
It left
me, you want a little more than just the one weekend.
I did want a little bit
more.
more, but I understand why, because I'm having a hard time coming up with that more that's satisfying.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, there's that thing of when it first happened, I was like, oh, that's so dumb. Like, it doesn't even like, the whole thing that he'd been talking about the whole movie was basically like, look, whether you want, to Annie is basically like, you're an adult. And
he says to this person 10 years older than him.
Exactly. Yeah, I never even thought about that. But he's basically like we're both adults and we both know what we want, and you're basically like running around with these. You're choosing these kids because you get to basically boss them around, and you don't want an equal. And why don't we just go be adults together? Let's just do that.
And that sounds a little bit better than, why would you want a boy when you can have a man?
Yeah.
That sounds gross. What he said, better.
Yeah. And so
it's a partnership.
Feel like that bummed me out, because I was like, that's what he's been promising, but then he just goes off and basically it just tries to live out his childhood dream, because essentially, it's clear that the future for him is like, he's always like, I just need to quit this game. I need to quit this game. It's time for me to go, and become like a manager, become like the adult in the room. But instead he goes and lives out his boyhood fantasy. Like, and then he made his number, like that number. And then he comes back and I'm like, okay, all right. I guess I see that.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I think I got it.
Right.
So
what's yours?
What's going to happen is, he's going to try to get that manager job that they alluded to at the end of the movie, but it's not going to happen. He's got too much fire. So that's going to be channeled into writing out his story. And his, experience in there is going to be channeled into a screenplay. And that screenplay is going to become this movie, and he's going to become a director.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So not a writer, a director?
Well, no, I mean,
where's the firiness?
What's that?
I mean, he's still going to be, but it's more socially acceptable to be fiery as a director.
Well, you're the leader.
Aren't you a leader as a manager?
No.
Okay.
Not in my book. Not in my book that I said that he wrote.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, okay, let me back up a few steps. So
Let me yes and you.
I didn't even yes and myself. What's going to happen is he's not going to get that manager job. She is a teacher, and so he's going to look into ball clubs, not ball clubs, but ball coaching in the college level. So he'll do that, and he'll not do well at that as well. So that's when he's going to start writing his stories, and he's going to, kind of get into that because, there are only so many good baseball movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that makes sense because, and he's going to have Kevin Costner be in every one of them. Oh, wait.
Or Kurt Russell trivia. It was my understanding.
So what happens to her?
Oh,
what happens to them?
She's going to stick around with his moody fits.
So really, you think they're going to go the distance?
I think what's going to happen is that their distance is going to be together, but it's going to be rocky, especially that first baseball season afterwards.
Oh,
because this is the first time that she's not going to be able to. Okay, anytime you're on a winning streak, and he himself knows how to respect a winning streak, she is essentially giving up her winning streak. It's like, hey, I've had all of these players become amazing.
That's true.
And so now I'm going to go be an adult with you together.
Yeah, and and you're just going to be a cranky pants.
And now she has this channeled energy. She's going to be a cranky pants too. Yeah, so it's going to be rough for them. It's going to be rough for them for a while. So she'll channel it into other pieces of teaching, and it's just not going to go well. I think she's going to pick up an apprentice. Similar to that other...
Yeah.
Was her name Jenny?
Yep.
Yeah, similar to Jenny.
No, her... it's actually Millie, but the actress's name is Jenny Robertson, who's really lovely. Actually,
I was close.
I also really liked this. Just as a side note, I appreciated this as a woman who's now much closer, actually older than Susan Sarandon's character, or even Susan Sarandon when she made this movie, is that she didn't have this thing with the younger women. She basically, Millie is her protege, and she is not at all like insecure or judgmental of her, and in fact is just really encouraging. And there's no there isn't any insecurity about the fact that Millie is, younger.
Nothing about that, and has also relationship with the ball players.
Yeah, she's kind of, as I said, she's a bit of a protege. That makes sense.
It shouldn't make me as happy as it was when she married the Christian guy on the team.
Yeah, I know, me too.
But what I thought was interesting is that one of the ball players was just like, how much is he going to freak out when he finds out, under no circumstances are you going to tell him that? And I'm like, yay?
That was actually one of my favorite, another funny baseball moment is basically they all end up on the mound. Or having a council, which you always see. Oh my God,
that was fantastic!
Yeah, and so he's the assistant coach, and he's called out to do that, and he's like, "What's happening here?" And Crash is like, well, "We have a lot going on. We one guy, somebody cursed his bat, and so we need a live chicken. Something was going on with the Ebby." And they don't know what to get. They don't know what to get as a wedding gift. And he's like, I know where to get you a live chicken. And then basically Owen says, he's like, I forget what it was. It was like a platter. Yeah, candlesticks are always good. And we should see where they're registered and get them their China pattern.
Always go with the registry.
Yeah, always go with the registry. Oh, yes.
No, that's just my advice.
I totally agree. People unless it's
my registry, I have way too much fun with that gun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a blast.
I want that. I want that. I don't want any of that.
Yeah. There's definitely, I don't know, something happens to you when you're with that gun. But regardless, the point is, I totally agree.
You go with the registry.
Go with the registry. Yeah, please.
Yep.
So that was just a great moment.
Step off the mound.
Yeah.
What do you think happens next?
So I actually think that I think that he. I think that they have a rocky first year. I think that he does get that manager job. And I actually think that he loves it. He really takes to managing. I think maybe the first couple I think the first, couple months are really, really hard, but I think it'll be comforted by the fact that he doesn't have anyone who is like a God-given talent on that team.
Oh, okay.
So because I was actually very disappointed with the way that Crash dealt with Ebby going to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like he does apologize, but he essentially he drinks a lot in this movie.
Okay.
And I think that basically, and usually when he's depressed, and he basically instead of being happy for him, and it's one of those things where he's like leaving the next day. So it's like,
I love it's a baseball emergency.
yeah, totally. And I realize, I'm like, oh, but that's just what happens. And I'm like, is that really what happens? Or is this just a thing that I've seen in every movie, that you have 3 hours to prepare, and you have to go off. I was really disappointed in him because, he's basically this is one of the highlights of, Ebby's life, and Crash makes it about him, and his anger and his misery and his sort of the place that he is in his life. And I think that's just kind of just not a good look.
14-year-old Diana really, identifies with that. And also 26-year-old Diana and kind of 31-year-old Diana. Go on.
And yet, it kind of made sense. I think honestly now his sort of whole ageism thing makes a little more sense to me. But I think I think that basically they go and she decides to go with him. So I don't think she sells her house or anything.
Okay.
I think maybe she has Jenny and Jimmy live with them. Live in that house.
You mean Millie?
Oh yeah,
I did
the thing. Millie, they live there, and she basically they spend the summer, the rest of the season basically, blissful, in a blissful thing. She ends up working at, she ends up getting, it's the school is not as nice. The students are, maybe it's a community college. She is not that whole thing that she had where she was a part of a huge community that knew her and respected her. Yeah. And she basically just becomes the manager's, girlfriend.
Okay.
And her opinions about baseball and her passion about it are sort of dismissed a lot.
Oh, I don't care for that.
Yeah. And so I think that is going to be really hard. And they basically she decides she goes back to her life, but that they kind of have this long distance thing. He tries, because they're not too far from each other,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
And actually, in a weird way, I think it's more fun for both, especially for her.
Okay.
Because I think that the role she really chafes against is this thing of being just a spouse, and not someone who really kind of participates. And so, but then I think his fortunes are going to shift. Maybe he decides, I think when the team doesn't do as well, or, he has a season where he doesn't get a gig, he's going to become a miserable bastard. And they're going to get through it the first time. But the second time, I think she's like, this isn't worth it.
Okay.
And she's going to find somebody who is actually more into her other interests of literature and art. And actually, she's going to introduce him to baseball.
Okay.
And that guy is going to have a lot of nieces and nephews. And she is going to get, I don't think she's ever has kids. And I think she gets them into baseball. And one of them actually becomes a major league baseball player. That's what. I don't think they ever get married. I don't think anybody ever gets married in this scenario. I think that they, and then he basically does, secretly buries, some of her ashes. This nephew buries some of her ashes when he's a lot older, in various ballparks, because basically she spends a lot of her retirement kind of following him, like not following him around in a weird way, but just like, they go on a tour of different ballparks, and I think that, she, like, that passion that she has for baseball is gonna get, and he's gonna, when he gets into the Hall of Fame, he's gonna thank her.
Yeah.
And that is how she will make her mark on baseball. And I think that Crash will be, I think he'll be actually a really good manager, and will probably, right in his later years. But I think he's kind of a miserable
SOB. Wow.
He's a get off my lawn kind of old man.
Get off the pitcher's mound.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really liked that
Oh,
ending.
good.
Wow. Well, not the SOB part. The
No, yeah. I don't want anyone to become a miserable SOB. But,
I mean, unless they deserve it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like my ending, actually.
Good job.
I just thought of the cousin the nephew just came to me, but I feel strongly about it.
I think you were looking a little bit in the mirror when you saw that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just being introduced to somebody with a bigger family is all, and taking on their people, whatever.
Oh, you're right.
I hear a parallel.
You're right.
I heard it.
Oh, all right.
Bull Durham.
Thank you for hearing me. I feel very hurt. Bull Durham.
There it was. We did it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
You know what?
What?
I think all of that locker room talk
Wow.
made me think of a funky place.
Did it?
Have anything like good smelling you can talk about?
Well, actually, I was sort of thinking about, watching it. I was thinking about that, if you, like when you watch Bull Durham and you see this, you see someone who is so kind of in touch with their sensuality, and you think, I want to be like a woman like that. But, you come home and you're like, you've had a rough day at work and you feel kind of like, and you just like don't really know how to sort of get in touch with that part of yourself. Like, I have a cure for that feeling, that if you want to feel like Susan Sarandon feels, I would like to introduce you to a Frankie and Moore product called Hottie by Nature. So this is a lovely smelling thing. And it's got like rose, it's got tangerine, it's got rosewood, it's even got a little lavender, a little vanilla, which is supposed to be like the sexiest smell. Vanilla, yeah. It's like, yeah.
I can never go get ice cream ever again.
Oh, yes, you can.
Oh.
In fact, you should.
Okay.
And it's got a little rose, like it's got scents that you don't necessarily even associate with like romance, but it's got, so it's not a lot of pressure, but it's just got a lovely scent. Like I imagine that, this would be something that Annie would, you see her like putting a little essential oil on all of the, on the light bulbs.
On the lamps.
And I think this, if she were alive now, this is what she would buy in bulk. Hottie by Nature. I'm a big fan. I just also find it really relaxing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just feel like it just kind of gets me into my, I'm home. I am no longer a working person out in the world. I am home, and I am just kind of, enjoying being at home.
Hottie by Nature. Amazing.
Hottie by Nature.
Well, I think it's kind of important, though, that we don't have them pay full price for this.
Well, no, because, as I said, you're going to want to get in bulk because, once you feel this way, you're going to want to feel this way all the time. Especially if you have that many little, like, lamps around your house, you're going to need a lot of them, a lot of oil. So, I can solve that problem, too, which is if you go to Frankie and Myrrh, and that is Frankie and Myrrh, which is spelled Myrrh. And then when you order your your like 16 bottles of Hottie by Nature, if you enter the promo code happily, you will get 20% off. And even if you don't do that, you will get shipping on any order over $35.
Domestic shipping.
Domestic. Okay. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry.
With
It shouldn't be
apologies to our international listeners.
So U.S. centric. Yes. But actually very reasonable international shipping rates. But the other thing you'll be doing is supporting our show.
We really want to thank Frankie and Murr for sponsoring our show, and we'd like to thank all of you that go on there and use the code. You're supporting us, and we really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. We're bowled over. And I want to say that the product is great. Everything that we've tried, I really like. And I'm kind of snobby about this kind of stuff, so to be honest. But they're awesome.
And remember before when I said that I love bland?
Yeah.
This is actually bringing up my non-bland life.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, you add a little spice to your life when you prank humor.
Yeah. It's excellent. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. What's up?
How can people like talk to us about this movie, and if they, how they feel about baseball and home runs?
Well, they can start by tweeting at us. We're at HEAMCast.
HEAMCAST.
We are on Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath.
We are.
Yeah, if you ever want to get some long-form thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. We're at contact@heamcast.com.
We are.
And you know what? We'd really appreciate it that if you write a review and, go on Apple Podcasts, let us know that, we're awesome. Because there's only so much happiness that Frankie and Murr can give us.
Yeah. That gives us a lot of happiness, and plus it helps other people find us.
Yeah. If you like us and you're telling friends, be it, on, Apple Podcasts or just in person, we can't ask
Spotify or whatever.
We can't ask for, a more glowing recommendation than, people who like us telling friends about it. So
no, that means so much to us.
It does. Thank you so much.
Plus we have a hard time accepting compliments. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't write a review.
You're scaring them away, Polina.
I usually do.
Yeah. And also, I'd like to give a big shout out to the Lady Pot Squad.
Oh, the best stuff. The best people.
Yeah. You can go on any social media and hit #Lady Pot Squad. You'll find all the different podcasts that are out there, hosted by some amazing hosts.
Yeah. And they talk about everything. Really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So next time?
Yeah. What are we going to do?
So this movie was originally, the director had worked with Kurt Russell about getting the script in top shape. So it put this movie in my brain. So next time we're going to be talking about 1987 Overboard.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to see this movie.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you haven't seen it. It seems like it would have been in your realm.
I'm really curious to see. I hadn't thought about it.
I'm curious about revisiting it because it's been a long time.
Me too. I'm a little, but I think it'll be fun. I really do.
No, I think it'll be fun.
And Goldie Hawn is a delight, like a delight.
Correct. Agreed.
Yeah. So I think we're going to continue our
delightful ladies.
Delightful ladies of
wait. What are we
September? Then? Well, we're just we're expanding our.
Wait, are you trying to create a theme month?
No, God, I am.
No improving theme months, Polina.
I'm sorry. You're right. You tell me this every week.
All right.
I just want to. But yeah, I do. I love this idea of seeing Overboard.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's what we'll do next time.
Oh, good.
Cool.
Well, then I get what I want.
All right. Cut that part out. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. See you soon.